We all look forward to retiring, and the sooner the better. But when can you actually make the big move? We've got some tips. Then, need a little extra cash or want to reduce your debt? Find out the pros and cons of refinancing. And let's organize so your business can prosper. All this and more right now on The Wealthy Life. Welcome to The Wealthy Life. Are you wondering at what age you can finally retire? Joining us today are financial advisors Mark Duncan and Megan Douglas to share tips on retirement planning. Mark and Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Well, everyone wants to retire, don't they? One day, hopefully.
Hopefully soon.
So Mark, what is the average age people tend to retire at in Canada?
Well, the median age for retirement in Canada is 64.6. which is pretty close to when most people will start collecting their old age security and Canada pension plan. Something we've also noticed is over the last 20 years, this number keeps creeping higher. 20 years ago, it was 61. So more and more people are working in retirement through their golden years.
And maybe that's because we live longer, so we're pushing retirement off to a later date.
Absolutely. And I think some people really like their jobs.
Well, I always wonder about the millennials. Megan, do they have a different outlook? Like, is it too young to start thinking about retirement? And what would you say the average age they expect to retire at would be?
The average millennial probably expects to be able to retire a bit earlier than 65. However, for the average millennial, retirement's such a long ways away. They're focusing on building their careers, starting families, possibly buying their first home. So for most millennials, what I would recommend is to definitely think about saving for retirement, but I do understand there are other priorities that they're focusing on.
So should they start saving anyway, or should they wait?
There's definitely a benefit to save. So say, for example, you have two sisters. One of them starts working straight out of post-secondary, and the second sister travels or volunteers and meets lots of new people around the world. Both experiences are very important to a wealthy life. But let's say sister one is working, starts at 25, and is saving for 10 years on average $5,000 a year. So it's around $400 a month.
Seems reasonable.
After 10 years, the first sister will have just under $70,000. Whereas the second sister, perhaps she's been skiing for 10 years and she's an amazing skier.
So the fun sister.
Yes. She won't have anything. However, say she starts her career and starts saving like her sister for the next 30 years until age 65, $5,000 a year.
Yep.
So after 30 years, the first sister, she will have $820,000 in investments for retirement.
Wow.
The second sister, she'll have $419,000, which is still a nice amount to have saved aside, but it just shows the $70,000 at age 35 doesn't seem like a lot, but the benefit of compound interest definitely helps out.
Okay, so it'd be nice to have a little fun, but it's going to cost you at the end of the day. So be careful. Mark, how do people know they're on the right track for retirement?
Well, they have a financial plan. And hopefully many people already have a financial plan in place, one that they've come back to a few times to make sure they stay on the right track. In fact, 3/4 of Canadians claim they don't have a financial plan.
That's scary.
It really is. It's hard to know whether you're going in the right direction if you haven't done this exercise. And I think that if you're one of those 3/4 of Canadians that don't have that, you want to talk to your financial advisor or a certified financial planner. Because if you wait 1 to 2 years before retirement, sometimes it might be a little too hard to close that gap and might mean you're retiring a couple years later than you want or drawing less money in retirement.
So you need to look at that far in advance. Don't wait till, geez, it'd be nice to retire in 6 months and expect to have it all figured out.
Absolutely. It's like a roadmap. You want to keep testing it to make sure you stay on the right track.
So what needs to be in place, Megan, before people retire?
Well, the first thing to think about before deciding to retire is how much money do I need to fund my retirement lifestyle?
That's a big question.
It's a big question, which leads to the second. Where is that money going to come from? And there's lots of different sources of income, as Mark mentioned earlier, OAS and CPP, as well as possibly work pensions and investments.
How do you construct a portfolio that's going to meet income needs into retirement? What are some things to consider?
Well, today you really want to make sure you have dividend paying stocks in your portfolio. Not just, some companies pay a dividend, but they can't maintain that dividend. Companies with long track records of paying a dividend and hopefully maybe even increasing one. I brought an example today, which is an actual recommendation, but the largest utility company in Canada is Fortis. And Fortis is an industry leader and has done tremendous for its shareholders. And they've actually been increasing their dividend, not just maintaining the dividend, for 48 years in a row.
Wow.
So this dividend
Get a raise
growth,
every year.
You get a raise, and it's much more than the inflation rate. So these are the kinds of stocks you want to put into a diversified portfolio to create your own pension plan at the end of the day.
Okay, so not only did the dividend increase every year, but what did the stock price do? Did it go up over that time period?
Absolutely.
Oh,
It's
so
gone up a
double
little
benefit.
bit. Yeah, exactly. You get a little bit of capital growth plus that steady income you can rely on in retirement to create your own pension plan.
So to answer the question, at what age can people retire? Megan?
It's different for every person because everyone has different goals in retirement. Some people want to travel, some people want to buy a vacation property, some people want to volunteer and do charitable giving to a cause that's important to them.
So the answer really is when you have enough money,
yes,
and you can be sure that you've got enough income to do all those things you want to do. Mm-hmm. Well, Mark and Megan, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been great.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us, Sybil.
And viewers, if you want to know what your retirement number is, head on over to thewealthylife.com and check out our retirement income calculator. And after the break, learn how to access some extra cash or reduce your debt.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Welcome back. Want to access some extra cash or reduce your debt payments? Maybe it's time to refinance. Mortgage broker Jody Christian is here to walk us through the benefits, drawbacks, and what to consider when refinancing. Jody, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Sybil. It's a pleasure to be here.
So what are some of the main reasons people look to refinance?
Well, people look to refinance for a few different reasons. One of them could be that they want to pay off some unsecured debt that perhaps has higher interest rates on them or higher payments on them.
Ooh, like a credit card at 21%?
Yeah, absolutely. Or perhaps a car loan with a high monthly payment. By refinancing it into your mortgage, it will reduce your overall monthly costs, and it could lower the interest rate. Typically, the rate on a mortgage is much lower than unsecured debt.
Right, and so if you've got extra cash flow, or if you take a longer amortization period, that will also reduce your payments, freeing up extra cash flow. People could put that money towards other things, like investing for their future.
Absolutely. That's actually another very popular reason why people pull equity out of their home. Many of my clients get set up to do that in order to make an investment on another property or perhaps an investment in the stock market. There's many different reasons why people pull equity out for other investments. One thing that people should know is that it's a good idea to start that process before they perhaps find another property. Because when you start to refinance your home and get set up to pull equity out, the overall cost and the stress is going to be much lower prior to you going out and finding another investment, especially if it's another home.
Yeah, you want to plan in advance and get set up to borrow money before you actually need to borrow money.
Totally.
What happens
Yes.
if somebody loses their job and then they want to go refinance?
Well, then it would be, that is taken into consideration. And if you have lost your job, it's not going to be quite as easy to refinance. Another thing to note is that when you do get set up to refinance your home, You don't necessarily have to take the money out right away. A very popular thing to do is to have your mortgage and attach a line of credit to it. So that line of credit can be accessed at any time. So you don't want to pay interest on money that you're not using right away.
Right. So you can get essentially pre-approved. You can set up the borrowing capabilities without actually needing to borrow the money right away.
Absolutely. When you do that in advance of, you say, purchasing another home, because you're refinancing a home that is owner occupied, your interest rate is going to be what's called an owner occupied interest rate. So if for example, you wanted to turn that home into a rental property in the future, and you've already set up that line of credit in advance, the interest rate is going to be nice and low. Whereas if you waited until you found that second property, the interest rate is going to be higher because that will be deemed a rental property.
Now, I know depending on what interest rates are at the time, sometimes people maybe want to refinance to move from a variable rate to a fixed rate, or from a fixed rate to a variable rate. Which one's better?
It really depends on your situation. When you move from the variable to a fixed rate, there's no costs in doing that, because one of the privileges under a variable rate mortgage is that you can lock it into a fixed rate at any time. However, when you're in a fixed rate and you want to switch to a variable, the penalty has to be taken into consideration. So that's where you want to work with a mortgage broker to determine, does it make sense to break that mortgage, incur the penalty, add it into your mortgage by refinancing, and then go into a lower rate.
Right,
So,
because typically the cost of the penalty to get out of that mortgage really offsets any benefit you're going to receive. Maybe, but it's worth looking at.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
what are some of the things people need to provide to their financial institution in order to refinance?
That's a great question. First and foremost, we want to make sure that the value of the property, we have a good idea of what that value is. So say you haven't formally had it appraised. One thing people do is they may ask a realtor, perhaps the realtor that sold them the house, what that realtor thinks the market value of the property is today. And then it's just a simple calculation. So you take the market value, you multiply it by 80%. You can, under federal law, borrow up to 80% of the market value of your home without incurring any extra insurance costs and whatnot. It's actually not even possible to borrow higher than 80% of the value under the B2 guidelines that came out in 2016 from the federal government.
Well, Jody, this has been fantastic. Thank you for sharing these tips with us today. Any final thoughts for our viewers?
Well, really what you want to do before you consider refinancing, I'd say, is just reach out to your banker or to your broker and have them crunch those numbers so that it makes sense and you're getting good advice as to what your options are.
And put a little extra money in your pocket. Thanks again, Jody. Great having you today.
Thank you for your time.
And stay tuned. After the break, we'll learn how to get your finances organized.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Welcome back. Business owners, are your finances a bit scattered? With us now is Jane Stoller to share some simple tips to get you organized so your business can prosper. Jane, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
So what does it mean when people are scattered? What impact does that have?
A huge impact, especially on your business. The ability to focus, increase stress, and most importantly, you're not as productive as you could be.
When I think scattered, I think papers everywhere and the mind can't focus. You don't know where to find things. Things are just a mess and it's stressful.
Well, today especially, like you said, our minds can be cluttered, also our spaces, and now also our digital life. So we're having to tackle all of these, especially as a business owner, and then also papers and finance, and it all comes kind of into one big chaotic mess.
Oh, well, we don't like chaotic mess. So what are the areas business owners need to focus on to feel organized?
So first and foremost, I say your time. I really want you to get a bit more focused on spending your time wisely on your revenue generating activities, and also where your priorities are for you and if your team, if you have one. and make your time the center of the universe. I think it's the most important part for business owners.
Well, we can't buy more time,
No.
so we need to treat it as precious.
Exactly.
But easier said than done. So what do you typically see with business owners and their time?
So a lot of us don't have the systems and processes in place that kind of get us to be in a more fluid process or a way to get things done. So get to know your priorities, learn if you can put systems in place, and see if you can eliminate some of the distractions that are causing business owners a lot of wasted time.
How do they get rid of the distractions? Do you have any secret tips to share?
Oh, I do. So one of the big ones is your space. I want you to declutter your space in your office space, your home space, anywhere where you're working, and that includes your desktop. When you open your desktop in the morning, it should be clutter-free, it should be organized, and it should be ready for the day. That's my biggest tip.
Oh my gosh, I just feel better thinking about that. Imagine walking in to your office or your workspace every day and it's like a fresh start and everything's in its right place and you know where to start and what to ignore.
Exactly, and that includes your emails, your digital files, and your social media. So business owners, please take some time to reflect on where you're spending your time and if you can put small systems in place.
Okay, I think a lot of people are probably spending way more time on email. It is information overload nowadays. Any tips for weeding out the junk?
Email should be a use of time in terms of you check it twice a day, maybe you have an assistant that goes in there, you delete quite heavily, and it should not be kind of your sole item for making your task list or spending your time on. If you're spending too much time on your email, then perhaps you need to outsource it or hire an assistant to take care of some emails or find some way to deal with it because it should not be where you spend most of your time.
I like that idea you shared about maybe twice a day. So time blocking, what are your thoughts on that?
A huge fan of time blocking. So if you email me, you'll see that you get an autoresponder saying, I check my email twice a day, 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It sets expectations and also keeps me accountable. I put my time cube on for an hour, I check my emails. I'm laser focused, I'm highly productive, and I get those emails done.
Oh, that's great. I know time blocking can be used for all kinds of things, including meetings with other team members. Rather than having someone come in and interrupt you all the time, wouldn't it be great if you just had a meeting once a day or once a week or however often it's needed, and that's your focus time with that person?
A huge fan of that again. And just even if you can have some kind of timer that shows you're in a meeting or just let the expectation that says, you know what, I'm really doing my focused work here, please no interruptions. Then you can let your staff know. And also when they have meetings, give them your true present attention.
Okay, so the business owners have now figured out a way to start fresh, clean up their space, clean up their calendar, time block. Let's jump into the finances, because I think that is kind of a stressful part for most business owners.
You know, it's a stressful part, but it's one of the most important. We have to know our numbers as business owners, and it's often a part we say, I'm not good at that, I'm not going to spend time on it, I might hire somebody someday, but we need to know our numbers. It is vital. And there's a few simple tips and lots of software you can use, and I'm a big proponent of getting a software such as QuickBooks.
Yep.
Anybody can use that. As soon as you start your business, set up an account and start using it right away.
Track everything right away.
Yep.
Put it in there. How about for all those receipts that you have? Do you just upload them right away? What do you do with them?
There's a lot of different receipt tracking softwares today as well. Expensify is one of them. QuickBooks also has them, and they all connect to your accounting software. Today is even more important that we keep track of the receipts. Whether you have a bookkeeper or not, you should know how to do it in the beginning.
Yep.
And also just digitizing your receipts makes it easier for your accountant, and if you ever do get audited, they're still all in one place in a file folder and they're safe.
And you keep at it as you go along. You don't wait till the end of the year and try and upload everything at once.
Well, I'm a big fan of having a weekly accounting date with yourself, especially if you're a business owner.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, it's become exciting. It's become something I look forward to. Every Friday at 11:30, I have mine. If I have to move the block, it's okay. But you don't want to get in the habit of moving it every week because then stuff piles up. This should be a date you look forward to. You should know your numbers. You should be proud and also be reevaluating your expenses and your invoices.
Jane, this has been awesome. Great tips. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
And up next, learn how to increase your savings when we return.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Welcome back. Thanks for your letters, emails, tweets, and messages. Today's message is from Sophia. Dear Sybil, I seem to struggle with saving money, but I know I need to start so I can eventually buy a house and retire. Do you have any tips on how to increase my savings? Thanks, Sophia. Well, Sophia, the first step is setting a goal, and you've done that. You've actually got 2 goals. Without a goal, people tend to lack the motivation. It's hard to save because what are you saving for? It's delayed gratification, and people want to feel good now. So let's talk about that one goal of buying a house. You'll probably need to start saving so you have enough of a down payment to buy that dream home. And think how good you'll feel when you do own that home and you've achieved that goal. So figure out how much you need to save and then work backwards from there. If you need $50,000 5 years from now, you need to start saving $10,000 a year to achieve that goal. Now, once you know how much you need to save, you got to start saving it. I recommend setting up an automatic savings program. You can set this up with your financial institution. Treat your savings like a bill payment. Have that money come right out of your bank account automatically every payday, right into that savings account. And then you might not even notice it. It's forced savings and it works. Generally, I also recommend aiming for 10 to 20% of your income to go directly into savings. And that's exactly what you'll need to fund some of those goals that you have. And be accountable. Find an accountability partner, someone that you can make a goal with together and hold each other accountable to those savings plans. And don't forget, when you succeed, give yourself some little rewards along the way. Hopefully that's the encouragement you need to start saving to achieve your goals. And that wraps up this edition of The Wealthy Life, helping you make smart financial decisions. Join the Wealthy Life Club and you'll get access to everything you need to live your version of the wealthy life.